We are in week 4 of our summer learning, lesson number 7. I can hardly believe it. It's gone by so fast. My name is Mrs. Kinman, and we are ready for a reading lesson today. My quote for today is, "Reading is to the mind what exercise is to the body." And I hope that you are realizing that as we practice these reading skills. It's just really great exercise for your brain. All right, here is our agenda for today. We are going to be starting with focusing on our mindset like we always start. Then we're going to do some word work with homonyms. We will do a first read of a fluency practice passage. Then our reading comprehension skill is we're going to be looking at the text illustrations and talking about how they help us to understand the story. And finally, we'll check for understanding. All right, so let's get in the right mindset for learning. By now, you're a pro at learning gems, so let's just jump right in. I want you to think about your own learning gems as I reflect on mine. Something that I am grateful for is Scholastic. You probably know the word Scholastic because you have Scholastic book fairs and your teachers might do Scholastic book orders. They're a book publishing company and they've given us permission to use their books in our summer school lessons. And I'm really grateful for that because I'm really excited about the story that I'm going to share with you today. You're going to love it. Something that I'm excited about is that now that we've been working on all these reading tools and we've been talking about reading and practicing, you're going to be ready just to read the rest of the summer. You know I'm going to be reading the rest of the summer because I love it. And I'm just so excited to think about you reading as well. Something that I am motivated to do is to put my fiction teaching hat back on. For the last several weeks, we've been talking about nonfiction texts, which are awesome. But as we know, we have different thinking voices for nonfiction text comprehension and fiction text comprehension. And so for these last lessons this week, we're putting our fiction hats back on. So I'm really motivated to get into that mode. And a success that I can celebrate this week is that lots of my former students have been graduating from high school and graduating from college, and I'm so proud of them. It's one of the best things about being a teacher is to see your students later down the road finding success. It really it makes everyone feel successful. It's been really fun. All right, so now that we've got our mindset focused on things that are going well, now let's think about those whole body listening skills so that you are ready to listen and ready to learn. So as I go through each checkpoint, I want you to do a little self-assessment and make sure that you are practicing whole body listening. Your eyes are ready to listen when you're looking at the speaker. Your ears are ready to listen whenever they are open. Your mouth is quiet and you're waiting for your turn to talk. Your hands and feet are quiet and still into yourself. Your body is facing towards the speaker. Your brain is thinking about what is being said, and your heart is open and ready to learn some new things. So we've got those whole body listening skills. We have focused our mindset. We are definitely ready to listen and ready to learn. So let's get started. Today for our word work, we're working on homonyms. Homonyms are two words that are spelled the same or pronounced the same, but they have different meanings. Let's look at some examples. Right and right. These words are pronounced the same, but as you can see, they have different spellings and they certainly have different meanings. Right, R-I-G-H-T, is like my right hand, and write, W-R-I-T-E, means to write something down like on a piece of paper. How about these two words, left and left? Now those words are spelled the same and they're pronounced the same, but they certainly have different meanings. One meaning of the word left is like the opposite of right. This is my left hand. And the other left is a verb, like he left the room. Here we have two homonyms, band and band. One meaning is like a rubber band. Another one is like a music band. So it is so important that we understand homonyms so that we can understand words when we're reading. Now I want you to practice. I'm going to give you a set of homonyms, and I want you to see if you can think about the two different meanings. If the words are spelled differently, can you identify the correct spelling with the correct definition? Do your best. Ready? Let's try this pair of words first. We have the words mail and mail. This spelling of the word mail is like what you receive in your mailbox, like a letter or a magazine. This spelling of the word male is a gender, like the opposite of female is male. Let's try another set. Loan and loan. This spelling of the word loan means by itself, like she was the lone student left taking the test. This spelling of the word loan is to borrow. I will loan you a pencil so you can do your work. How are you doing? Let's try some more. We have meet and meet. This spelling goes along with the definition of being introduced to someone. Like, I would like for you to meet my brother. This definition of meat is referring to the kind of meat that you eat, like hamburger meat. Couple more. I bet you could read these words, ate and ate. This spelling of the word ate means the past tense of eat, and this spelling of the word ate is the number 8. Buy and buy. This buy means that you spent money to purchase something, and this buy is meaning like in close proximity to something, like the swing is by the tree. Now, you might be thinking back to our lesson last week when we talked about homographs, and you might be a little bit confused on what is the difference between homonyms and homographs. Well, homonyms refer to 2 or more words that share the same pronunciation but have different meanings no matter how it's spelled. They may or may not share the same spelling, but they do share the same pronunciation. Homographs are words that share the same spelling, but they might have different meanings regardless of pronunciation. They have the same spelling, remember, like lead and lead, and they may or may not share the same pronunciation, like in that example I just gave you. Now that might seem confusing, and I agree that it can be, but let me express to you what is most important. It is not most important that you read 2 words and you can identify if they're homonyms or homographs. That's not what's most important. What is important is that you use context clues or other words in the sentence to make sure that what you're reading makes sense. This is the bottom line, that when you read a word, you can identify what it means, that it makes sense within the text or the context of the sentence, and therefore you're understanding what you read. So being able to distinguish between these 2 things, not really that important. We are practicing it in order for you to know the skill, but really what's most important is that you're understanding the words that you read. That's the bottom line. All right, let's go on to some fluency practice. Our passage today is about Mars. Now remember, we practice fluency because good readers can read smoothly and accurately. That means that they make as few mistakes as possible, but they also read smoothly. You pause at the end of sentences. So when you see a period, you need to take a breath. You read with feeling or emotion. So if there's a question or an exclamation mark, you can use your reading voice to be able to express how that sentence is written. Practicing fluency helps you become a better reader because you're reading accurately and you're reading smoothly. Now, this is a new passage today, so it's the first read. So we're going to go a little bit more slowly because it's the first time we're seeing this text. So make sure that you move close enough to your screen that you can see the passage. I want you to sit up nice and tall, get ready to use your reading voice, and we'll read this together. Ready? Let's begin. If you get a chance, look at Mars through a telescope. Mars is the 4th planet from the sun. It is smaller than Earth, and it has 2 moons. Mars is called the red planet because it is covered with red rocks and dirt. There are even dust storms there. You might also see an ice cap. Some people think that Mars used to be like Earth. There are signs that there used to be rivers. Now the rivers are dry. People still do not know if there is or was life on Mars. Would you like to make Mars your home? Great work. One word that I want to point out to you in the fluency passage that relates to the lesson we just did in our word work is this word here, cap. Now, it is paired with another word, ice cap. The word cap has different meanings. It can mean something that you put on your head, like a baseball cap, or it can mean the top part of a mountain. What do you think makes more sense within the context of this sentence? You might also see an ice cap. Do you think this passage is referring to a baseball hat made out of ice? No, it's sure not. That's an example of how we use that skill when we're reading. We want to be able to pronounce the words, but most importantly, we want to be able to understand the words in the context of a passage. Great work. All right, now we are going on to our comprehension skill. And like I told you at the beginning of the lesson, today we're working with a fiction text. So we're going to be talking about how illustrations help convey what is happening in the story. So remember, good readers don't just use their reading voice. They, at the same time, use their thinking voice. And this thinking voice is so important. Your thinking voice today needs to be thinking about how does the picture help me understand more about the story. So this ReadWorks article or passage is pretty short, and there is a picture. And as you're listening, I want you to think about how does that picture help me to understand what's happening in the story. Ready? Let's listen.
Lost treasure. Land, ho, Captain. Captain Redbeard looked out over the ship's bow. A small island could be seen over the horizon. He looked down at the faded and wrinkled map in his hands. If the map was right, then he and his crew were just hours away from acquiring a treasure beyond their wildest dreams. Stay on course. The captain called out. Every member of the crew was alert and eager to reach the destination. When there was treasure at stake, pirates paid attention. Of course, if the map was wrong, Redbeard knew he'd have an unhappy crew on his hands. They sailed across the sparkling blue water until they were a few hundred yards away from shore. According to the map, the treasure was hidden in a cave on the island's east coast. Redbeard barked out directions. Steer her starboard, lads. We'll anchor outside the inlet and lower the boats. The pirates sprang into action. They sailed around the coast of the island. Redbeard saw an inlet cove tucked inside the island's shore, just as the map showed. They anchored the boat and lowered 3 rowboats. Captain Redbeard climbed into the first one, along with 3 other pirates. The pirates rowed the boat, leading the way into the inlet. The water narrowed and led into a cave carved inside the island's rocky shore. The treasure awaits us. It will be a fine sight to see, Redbeard said. The cave was cold and dark. A few feet away Redbeard could make out something glittering on a rocky shelf, the treasure. Let's grab it, lads. he cried. Then the water around them began to churn. A giant octopus rose up in front of them, thrashing its tentacles. The boat nearly tipped over. Redbeard quickly tried to think of a plan. The map hadn't said anything about a giant octopus.
All right, so I hope you were thinking about how this picture helped convey what was happening in the story. Now, a couple things about this picture. First of all, sometimes you look at a picture and you have an immediate connection. And I have a feeling that a lot of you already knew what that was before anyone even started reading. But what if you didn't know anything about pirates? What about the whole concept of treasure was completely foreign to you? You didn't understand any of it. Does this picture help convey what's happening in the story? It sure does. And the end of the story, that almost appears like this is a passage maybe from a longer story, but the last line from what we heard today was, the map hadn't said anything about an octopus. So that helps us to know how important the map was to the pirates and the treasure that they were searching for. So this is just one quick example of how a picture can help convey the meaning in the story. Pictures are chosen for very specific reasons when authors are writing stories. All right, so you might have heard the saying or the phrase, a picture is worth 1,000 words. So keeping that in mind, we need to know that illustrations can show what is happening, give the reader extra clues, and affect how the reader feels while reading the story. In other words, what is the mood that the author is trying to convey? When you see a picture like this, you might automatically think of calm, peaceful, beautiful, and that very well could be the mood that the author is trying to convey. So now we're going to practice again with a different story. This story is called There Was an Old Lady Who Swallowed a Shell by Lucille Colanandro, illustrated by Jared Lee. This is published by Scholastic, and a huge thanks goes out to Scholastic for letting us read this story today. Now, you might be familiar with the concept of these There Was an Old Lady Who stories. There's lots in the series. This one is great for summertime, right? Because when we think of seashells, you think of the beach. That typically is what we think of for summertime around here. Now, if we lived in Florida, this might just be an everyday kind of book. But this one, where we are right here in the Midwest, the beach and shells, that just makes me think of summer vacation. As we're reading, I want you to think about what is happening in the pictures. How does it make me feel? Now, this book is not necessarily an award-winning book, but Jared Lee, the illustrator, he is a Caldecott Award-winning illustrator. That means that he has won big awards for his illustrations. The pictures in There Was an Old Lady Who stories are kind of pixelated, and they're very easy to distinguish for this particular illustrator. So remember, I'm reading the story. The reading voice that you're hearing is my voice. The thinking voice inside your head, I want you to think about what is happening in the pictures and how does it make you feel. Ready? I'm just going to sit down and read the story, okay? Make sure that thinking voice is focused on the pictures and how they make you feel. There was an old lady who swallowed a shell. There was an old lady who swallowed a shell. I don't know why she swallowed the shell. She didn't tell. There was an old lady who swallowed a crab. Why did she grab that crawling crab? She swallowed the crab to live in the shell. I don't know why she swallowed the shell. She didn't tell. There was an old lady who swallowed a fish. What a tickly dish, that swimming fish. She swallowed the fish to catch the crab. She swallowed the crab to live in the shell. I don't know why she swallowed the shell. She didn't tell. So far, these pictures are making me feel like, ew, yuck, I would not want those things living in my belly. And it also makes me feel that this is a pretty funny way to try to solve the problem. The mood that I'm getting from this story is definitely humor. There was an old lady who swallowed a gull. It wasn't dull to swallow a gull. She swallowed the gull to scoop up the fish. She swallowed the fish to catch the crab. She swallowed the crab to live in the shell. I don't know why she swallowed the shell. She didn't tell. There was an old lady who swallowed a pail. She didn't wail when she swallowed the pail. I'm noticing in the picture that she's still smiling like she's having a good time. That's pretty funny too. She swallowed the pail to carry the gull. She swallowed the gull to scoop up the fish. She swallowed the fish to catch the crab. She swallowed the crab to live in the shell. I don't know why she swallowed the shell. She didn't tell. There was an old lady who swallowed some sand. Oh, how bland to swallow sand. She swallowed the sand to fill up the pail. She swallowed the pail to carry the gull. She swallowed the gull to scoop up the fish. She swallowed the fish to catch the crab. She swallowed the crab to live in the shell. But I don't know why she swallowed the shell. She didn't tell. There was an old lady who swallowed a wave. Swallowing a wave was such a big hassle that she suddenly burped and built a sandcastle. Now that is pretty funny. Did you think about all of those pictures and how they helped us to understand the story? Do you understand why those pictures were chosen by the author for this story? How did it make us feel? Well, I laughed. That's a pretty funny book. Definitely the mood that the author was trying to convey was humor. And that was definitely fiction, because that is certainly something that no one would ever try, right? So the illustrations are not just for looking at, although they do bring us joy when we look at illustrations in a story, but they really help us to understand the meaning of the story. And we can really get a lot from the illustrations when we think and make connections. So, how can you use illustrations to help convey the meaning of the story? First, go back to the text and look carefully at the illustrations. If you were reading a story and you were really focused on the words, that's okay. But you can always go back and look at the illustrations and to have those thoughts. Ask yourself, what is happening in the pictures? What is happening and how does it make me feel? Then, if you're asked a question about the illustrations, you would say, or you would write, this illustration shows blank, and it makes me feel blank. That's how we can use those illustrations to help think about how they convey the meaning. All right, now we're ready to check for understanding. We're going to do a finger response. You're a pro at this by now, so have your fist ready. I'm going to read your question out loud. Are you ready? Which of the following is not an example of a thinking voice question readers ask when looking at a story's illustrations? A, what is happening in the pictures? B, how many pictures are there? Or C, how do the pictures make me feel? Ready? 1, 2, 3, respond. I hope you're holding up 2 fingers. The answer is B. How many pictures there are is not necessarily something we need to focus on with our thinking voice when we're reading. For example, the first passage that we read about the lost treasure, there was only one picture. That was okay. Can we help convey meaning with just one picture? Of course we can. And there was an old lady who swallowed a shell. There were lots of pictures for us to look at and think about. And that's great too. So something we're not focusing on is how many pictures there are, but we are definitely asking ourselves what's happening in the pictures and how do the pictures make me feel. Looking at the pictures in a story is optional. It doesn't help the reader understand the story. A, true, B, false. Ready? 1, 2, 3, respond. Once again, I hope you're holding up 2 fingers. That is false. You always want to use the pictures to your advantage. Think about what's happening in the story. Think about how those pictures make you feel, and you're going to be comprehending that story so much more. Now, for your practice at home today, you are going to be looking at some pictures from a story called The Heart and the Bottle. Now, that is not a story that we've read together today, but if you go on YouTube or maybe your bookshelf at home, you can probably find The Heart and the Bottle, and you could listen to the story that way. However, it's not essential to hear the story to analyze these pictures. So remember, when we read fiction text, we can use the illustrations to help us understand the story. We can also use them to help determine the overall mood or the feeling of the story. So you are going to be looking at these 2 illustrations from the story, The Heart and the Bottle, and you are going to answer some questions based on what you see in the picture. All right, great work today. I'm really proud of all the work that you're putting in with summer school this summer. Today, your code word is shell, so you can tell your teacher that your code word for today's lesson is shell. So that's it for today. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.